Millions upon millions of dollars go into the making of a movie, so it's a shame when the movie stinks. That said, a film's failure shouldn't always reflect on the artists working tirelessly behind the scenes. The special effects artists toil for months, even years, to make the finished products appear as if they're effortlessly real. In order to make all these effects screen ready, the actors are often forced to wear awkward costumes and put themselves in compromising positions on set. Join ScreenRant as we salute these moments behind the scenes when the special effects appear to be at their least magical. Here's a handful of moments where big budget screen actors were caught without the magic of digital effects. Let's start it off with every visual effects team's favorite color. Andy Serkis is Hollywood's go-to guy when it comes to motion capture performances. For those of you who don't know, motion capture, or mocap for short, is the time-honored process used on film sets to capture the movements of an actor. Motion capture allows films to accurately and realistically depict events that would never have been possible to accomplish live, in front of the camera, using principal photography. Actors wear monochromatic bodysuits, usually shaded green or blue, or suits covered in dots. This type of costume allows the computer animators to track the actor's movements and convincingly place another figure, shape, or form over the performance. Now, Andy Serkis became a household name thanks to his physical and vocal portrayal of Gollum in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Sure, Andy Serkis is the consummate professional, but if you see some of the behind-the-scenes pictures, his physical shape looked a bit less emaciated and goblin-like than the final product on screen. Behind the scenes and documentary footage reveals that Serkis simply acted his way through each moment, wearing only a light-colored bodysuit and a hood. The camera recorded him down to his facial tics. No expression played across his elastic face that wasn't captured by the effects team at WETA. When Andy Serkis returned to play Gollum in the Hobbit prequel trilogy, the passing decade allowed for major developments in technology. The crew at WETA was now able to map out Gollum's movements down to his muscles and bone structure. For this, Andy Serkis had to perform wearing a small rig over his face. A tiny camera, attached to the rig, was able to focus exclusively on the minute details of Andy's face. Serkis said that he played Gollum as if he were an addict, obsessed with the ring. This performance wouldn't have been nearly as convincing if Serkis hadn't fully committed on set, including wearing his goofy bodysuit. Speaking of Andy Serkis, the actor hasn't just supported franchises, he's led them. Most notably as Caesar in the latest Planet of the Apes films. Helmed by director Matt Reeves, the apes and their stories wouldn't have been nearly as effective without Serkis' contributions. We can see Andy's dedication and compassion through the digital ape mask that's superimposed over his own face in the finished films. And in these ape films, he's not alone. A team of motion capture actors all owe their performances to Andy Serkis' pioneering mocap style. Since there's an entire team of actors pretending to be apes, the behind-the-scenes photos of their on-set antics are wild to behold. In these movies, the actors all wear gray bodysuits and facial rigs similar to what Andy Serkis himself wore during the filming of the Hobbit trilogy. With the expressive style of acting and rigging comes a need for additional training and physical stress. Not only were the actors often contorted in positions that are unnatural to the human body, they had to prance around holding stilts on their arms so their proportions matched those of primates found in the jungles. Steve Zahn, who normally shows his face when appearing on screen, played Bad Ape in 2017's War for the Planet of the Apes. He said that the most difficult part of the process was to find and play the essence of an animal that feels and has perspective. An added challenge was making it all look effortless. During filming, shots were completed on a minimally dressed soundstage while actors ran up a ramp. Beside the action, a monitor showed a mock-up of the finished product, with ape-like figures superimposed over the actors, and a snowy slope replacing the ramp. Andy Serkis is often referred to as the best mocap actor out there, but director Matt Reeves believes that Serkis is really just one of the best actors, period. We're inclined to agree. The Revenant was a bear of a movie. It was a brutal, visceral experience that made us feel like we were right there with Leonardo DiCaprio, fighting for our lives in the wilderness during the coldest days of the 1820s. Oh, and also there was an actual bear in the movie. If you want to win an Oscar, just pull a Leo. Get mauled by a bear and sleep in an animal carcass. Sure, most viewers remember Leo's many dead-eyed stares and wild-eyed freakouts in the film, but the big standout was the bear scene. Most people have never had to face an angry grizzly in the wild, thankfully. but we can all imagine that scene in The Revenant is probably pretty close to what the experience would actually be like. So close that they must have used a real bear in the movie, right? Well, actually no. The famous grizzly in The Revenant was really just a guy in a blue bodysuit, with a paunch and a bulky blue bear head to boot. And here's a shot to prove it. Towering stuntman Glenn Enos was the man in the bear suit. While the bear's physical presence was accomplished thanks to the film's visual and sound effects teams, Glenn was actually the one throwing Leo around. Apparently, the production team considered using an actual bear, but most trained grizzlies are a bit too fat and docile to be convincing. So Glenn practiced the scene for a month to get the movements down just right. Meanwhile, the set was dressed with rubber trees so that when Leo was thrown, he wouldn't be injured. But that didn't stop the production crew from worrying. While wires aided the stunt team while they tossed Leo from one spot to another, his reactions were so realistic, they thought Leo was actually getting hurt. Now that's how you fully commit to a performance, scare a stunt team, and win an Oscar in the process. Zoe Saldana proved that she can move and dance in the teen drama center stage. Since then, she's become a veritable box office queen. Whether she's Uhura in Star Trek or Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy, the versatile actress has been hopping from franchises and solar systems with ease. But she can also swap the green makeup to play a blue-skinned alien as Neytiri in Avatar. With Avatar sequels on calendars through 2027, there will definitely be more trips to Pandora in our future. Thankfully, Saldana won't have to put on blue makeup for any of the sequels. Instead, she does all of her acting on sound stages wearing mocap suits. When sound stages are dressed for motion capture work, they're called motion capture volumes. While the performers act out their scenes in mocap suits, monitors provide cruel, live versions of the CGI that'll eventually appear on screen. That way, director James Cameron and his team can make adjustments to the staging and visuals in real time, so that the finished product best matches their intentions. The production team for Avatar made it clear that characters like Zoe Saldana's Neytiri have facial expressions and physicalities that stem from the actors' performances. Their movements aren't created wholly by the CGI animators. That's why, on set, Zoe needed to wear a skin-tight suit, dots on her face and body, and a boom on her head with a small camera attached. With cameras arranged around the mocap volume to record the wide shots and the personal, boom-mounted cameras to focus on the actor's face. The production team was able to fully realize even the smallest facial tic expressed by a supporting cast member. According to producer John Landau, what CGI technology does is it replaces prosthetics. Actors can now play any character that's designed in the computer without going through hours and hours of makeup, and what we get is their performance coming through the CGI characters. When Iron Man came to the big screen, skin-tight leather suits, latex costumes, and big red capes were replaced by CGI. As Iron Man's costumes have evolved over the course of each new installment in the MCU, and as Tony Stark's technology has developed to accommodate more complex features, the costume pieces that actor Robert Downey Jr. actually wears during filming have gotten more and more simplistic. In the past, when A-list actors grew more famous, the sizes of their roles increased and the costume and set pieces around them became more and more opulent. For RDJ, it sort of went the other way around. Robert Downey Jr.'s gone from rock bottom to the top of the Hollywood mountain. With a heart of gold and a suit of iron, RDJ redefined what it means to be a big screen superhero. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, however, a series of busts faltered his career. He even spent some time in prison due to his substance abuse issues. RDJ's talents, however, were widely respected, and despite his problems with addiction, the actor was widely loved. After the sleeper success of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and several other films, Robert Downey Jr. cemented his comeback when he helped launch the Marvel Cinematic Universe in 2008's Iron Man. With the sky-high popularity of Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. traded orange jumpsuits for motion capture bodysuits. In Iron Man 2, for instance, set photos reveal that Robert Downey Jr. and Don Cheadle cut far less imposing figures during principal photography. The colors of their bodysuits matched the general colors of their superhero costumes, but these frumpy-looking onesies, with dotted bands to aid the special effects team, are made to allow the actors to move as freely as possible while performing their roles, and to be visually augmented later. Other times, RDJ would be seen wearing various pieces of the costume, whether it be a chest plate or a partial helmet, but the full suit of armor is usually created in post by Industrial Light and Magic. Hey, while we're talking about special effects, you want to hear something even more special? If you're on your phone, go to settings and turn on notifications so YouTube will let you know when the next ScreenRant video is available. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Now here's more of our list of behind the scenes moments that take the special out of special effects. For Chris Evans, Captain America has a much more conventional costume. While Evans needed to stay in tip-top shape throughout the filming of his MCU entries, his performance relied far less on motion capture than some of his on-screen counterparts.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I can do this all day.
That said, the visual effects team at ILM did need to animate computer-generated effects around Evans, and even create CGI versions of the actor when the demands of certain set pieces were a bit too complicated. One of the visual effects concepts that gets much less fanfare was the process required to transform Steve Rogers into Captain America during his very first appearance in the MCU, Captain America: The First Avenger. Unlike Christian Bale, who drastically lost and gained weights for roles in the past, from Batman to The Machinist to American Hustle, and usually to the detriment of his health, Chris Evans was able to focus on building and maintaining the muscle needed to believably portray Captain America, even while playing the scrawnier version of Steve Rogers at the beginning of the film. Chris had emphasized how he didn't really want to share the role with a smaller actor. Luckily for him, Industrial Light and Magic devised a way to shrink down the actor's frame in post-production. When scrawny Steve is fully clothed, walking around and physically interacting with other actors, Chris Evans was performing the part 100% during the filming. Director Joe Johnston confirmed that Chris Evans was shrunk down in around 250 of the movie's shots. Some of the footage of Chris was shot against green screen, so a smaller version of Evans could be added to the necessary backgrounds. Other shots, where Chris was later shrunk down by the special effects team, required additional material to be placed into the background to fill in the void left by Chris Evans' now shrunken frame. During shots where scrawny Steve is sitting down or he's shirtless or undergoing examination, Chris Evans' face is digitally inserted over the body of a British Shakespearean actor whose skinny frame was perfect for the part. The characters in the MCU seem to be a bit less fantastical than, say, those in Middle-earth or the Planet of the Apes. With that in mind, Andy Serkis isn't the only performer who gets to embody wild and imaginative physicalities and outrageous creatures. Some mainstream actors, like Benedict Cumberbatch, get to join in on the fun. Sure, Cumberbatch is a celebrated theater actor, and his expressive style makes him perfect for the kind of physical work that motion capture performances demand, but when you think about the character of Smaug, the dragon from The Hobbit, can you picture anyone acting on set performing as the ancient serpentine monster? If you were to ask us, we'd imagine that a named actor like Benedict probably showed up to the studio, spent a couple hours in a recording booth speaking his lines into a microphone, then he likely went home and waited for the check to come in the mail. But Benedict gives his all to every performance, and Peter Jackson is a director who wants his actors to be fully immersed in the production. Besides, if the performers are immersed, it's more likely that the audiences will be more willing to immerse themselves into the movie as well. So Cumberbatch performed his role, wearing a skin-tight bodysuit and his face covered in tracking dots, serving as reference points for the animators. His physical performance gave the WETA visual effects team a starting point to use as inspiration for Smaug's motivations and provided movements in the final film. Additional photography, with a camera focused exclusively on Cumberbatch's expressive face, gave the special effects team the information they needed to match Smaug's facial performance to the actor's speech. Besides that, Cumberbatch's physical positions and contortions while wearing the mocap suit positively impacted the way he growled out Smaug's lines. Like Captain America, Superman's patriotic demeanor is mirrored by the colors of his costume. Kal-El is as American as apple pie, and his blue tights and red boots can easily be sewn together by a costume department, unlike the many moving parts of Tony Stark's Iron Man costume. Unlike the Christopher Reeve Superman, which relied heavily on wires, blue screen, and rear projection, the Brandon Routh Superman of Superman Returns and the Henry Cavill Superman of Man of Steel required a heavier reliance on digital effects to make us believe a man could fly. It wasn't all CGI, however. Even in 2006's Superman Returns, Brandon Routh's costume was fully practical. While his background was a green screen, the cape needed extra help from some people on set to sell that Superman was flying through the sky. Apparently, the red flowing cape's material was just a bit too heavy for a fan to convincingly blow. So puppeteers, wearing green onesies, stood behind him while the actor was lying on his stomach. Routh assumed his flying position as the green puppeteers, standing in front of a green screen, held wires attached to the back of his cape. The puppeteers then moved various parts of it up and down to mimic the wind-blowing look that we see in the finished film. The special effects team in Man of Steel apparently learned from the experiences of the crews of the previous Superman films. They filmed Cavill's flying scenes against green screen, with Cavill not even wearing a cape, so that it could be added in later. Wire rigs and gimbal rigs allow the filmmakers to put the actors in a variety of flying poses, and photograph them from convincing angles. A whole lot of hubbub was made over the usage of Carrie Fisher's deleted scenes and alternate takes for 2019's The Rise of Skywalker. While fans are split over the effectiveness of the footage, not too many will argue that it wasn't done tastefully. Many would actually agree that Carrie Fisher's presence is appreciated in the final Skywalker story. Fans are less forgiving of the usage of Peter Cushing's likeness in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Sure, Peter Cushing's estate approved its usage in the movie, but it's pretty weird to see a deceased actor's visage in a new film, uttering new dialogue and interacting with new actors. The same was done with Carrie Fisher when 1977-era Princess Leia appears at the end of Rogue One. While she looks fairly robotic, her short appearance was a little less divisive than Cushing's significant supporting role. Sure, in Star Wars lore, Tarkin is a major player when it comes to the Death Star, and in Star Wars A New Hope, his villainy has almost as much significance as Darth Vader. In order to bring Tarkin back to life, Lucasfilm relied on the performance of actor Guy Henry. The British thespian wore Tarkin's uniform and had reference dots covering his face. A personal rig with a camera attached tracked his facial expressions. In order to land the role, Guy did a screen test, wearing old age makeup and performing a Tarkin scene from A New Hope, just to make sure he could nail Cushing's voice and mannerisms. After he was cast, Guy said that he would repeat the same classic line in order to get into character on set. You would prefer another target? A military target? Then name the system. Despite Guy's fears over his ability to mimic Cushing's delivery, Rogue One director Gareth Edwards and the rest of the production staff was very encouraging throughout the process. While he ADR'd or re-recorded some of the dialogue during post-production, the team kept Guy's voice in the picture, despite the actor's own recommendations. While Guy was originally scheduled for 3 weeks of filming, Rogue One famously went through extensive rewrites and reshoots, meaning that Guy was working on the film from his original time on set up until shortly before its release. Deadpool's many violent action scenes require a ton of special effects to fully realize on screen. Thankfully, the process is made easier by the fact that Ryan Reynolds often gets to wear the full Deadpool costume on set. No red mocap onesie for the merc with the mouth. That doesn't mean though that Reynolds doesn't need to act beside other performers in skin-tight bodysuits covered in dots. Photos that leaked from the set show Reynolds in his Deadpool costume, interacting with an actor in gray dotted pajamas who's standing in for Colossus. Sure, Colossus is voiced by actor Stefan Kapicic, but on set the physical role was played by a 6-foot 9-inch tall actor. Yet in order to reach Colossus's towering stature, this stand-in would wear platform shoes. Another performer provided the mocap facial expressions for Colossus. That was Greg LaSalle, a visual effects pioneer who helped develop the facial motion capture technology that defines much of today's film effects. A system called the MOVA rig recorded his face using ultraviolet light to provide the digital animators with incredibly accurate and detailed facial expressions. Sure, LaSalle's facial features don't really align with the final look of Colossus, but his features are digitally linked to the final model's CGI, allowing for the expressions of LaSalle to match up to Colossus's performance on screen. Deadpool gets a lot of credit for how it utilizes special effects to tell a humorous and heartfelt story, all while remaining irreverent and hyper-violent. Reynolds is no stranger to motion capture performances though. He wore a mocap suit for his portrayal of Green Lantern, at least when his character was in Green Lantern's skin-tight suit. He also wore motion capture dots for Detective Pikachu. Obviously, Pikachu was too small a character for him to fully inhabit on set, but the effects team paid close attention to Reynolds' expressions so that the animated Pikachu's on-screen performance replicated Ryan Reynolds' offbeat delivery. Now that you know about these 10 instances where mocap actors were used to bring some of the wildest sequences to the big screen, are there any other CGI moments that also deserve a mention? Let us know in the comments section below. And be sure to subscribe to ScreenRant for more videos just like this one. See you around!